Hello, hello, welcome to my safe space. I'm Lena, and on my channel, I talk about my childhood traumas and how they affected me in my adult life. In today's deep dive, I would like to talk about challenges in the workplace because I've had many of those, and I blame hypervigilance. And the hypervigilance is the result of different childhood traumas. I mainly see the correlation between hypervigilance and abandoned child syndrome because I was abandoned by my mother when I was a year and a half. She never called me, she never sent birthday cards or birthday gifts. She just completely checked out. And I grew up being told that my mother left me because she doesn't love me, and my parents don't love me, both my mom and my dad, and they chose my brother over me, and that I wasn't loved, I wasn't wanted, and I was abandoned, and I should have ended up in an orphanage. That's what I was told by my grandmother who raised me, who I saw as a mother figure until I was probably 6 years old or something like that. So I have an abandonment child syndrome and I have a history of CSA trauma. So I'm not sure where the hypervigilance comes from exactly, probably from both. You can't really distinguish how one challenge I have came from this trauma and the other one comes from this trauma when we're talking about challenges in the workplace. Because, for example, if we're talking about challenges in my sex life at various stages of my life, obviously that's because of my CSA trauma, you know. But when we're talking about workplace challenges and how I have this hypervigilance in the workplace, then it becomes trickier. So, full disclosure, I don't know what caused my hypervigilance in a workplace, but I still want to talk about it because this is what my channel is about. It's about difficulties that people with childhood traumas face in their adult life. And I gotta say, my biggest challenge is not personal relationships, it's not finances, it's not drugs, it's not sexual life, it's work. Work was always my biggest challenge in life. Being content in a workplace, liking my job, liking my boss, or just getting along with my boss. I would say it was almost never a thing. The only happy workplace I was in was my very first serious, real job I had. It was in Ukraine. I made friends with my coworkers who were the same age as me. So we were young and restless. So I made friends with those people, and I didn't have my hypervigilance really bother me that much back then for some reason. I guess my trauma was still pretty fresh and I wasn't affected as much, but as I, you know, had gotten older, the traumas started affecting me more and more until a certain point. So what were the challenges in the workplace? I guess the biggest challenge I always had in the workplace was that I always assumed that I was gonna get fired. And guess what? I was never fired in my whole life. Not once was I fired. I was written up once. That's it. Why did I always think that I was gonna get fired? I don't know. I don't have an explanation. It's not based on facts, it's not based on previous experience. It's just the vibes. All it is just vibes that I always had this feeling that I was gonna get fired, that I probably had an imposter syndrome as well mixed in, that I always thought that I'm not good enough for this job, that they're gonna find out that I am an imposter, that I'm fake, that I don't know how to do my job, that I'm just, like this person that tries to pretend that they're adult and they got this thing figured out. But in reality, I did have this thing figured out. I was always good at my job. Like I held on to my jobs for years. So it's baseless. All those vibes that I had that I was gonna get fired were completely baseless. Another challenge was that I always thought that my manager was out to get me, that my manager despises me, that they give me the worst schedule, the worst section, because I was a waitress, that I was treated worse than everyone else, that my manager didn't want to know anything about me personally, which actually I still do feel that way. That when I see, when I used to see a manager, because now I'm a manager myself, but when I used to see my manager talk to other servers and know about like their kids, like their kids' names, and like what they're up to in life and stuff like that. I was always jealous of that, like envious, because I never had those conversations with my boss. Like I never shared, and I would wait for them to ask, but they never did. So I felt, and I still feel like I never had a bond with my manager. It was always some sort of a strictly professional relationship, which bothered me. Like it bothered me that it was strictly professional. I would like to get more personal with my manager, but it just didn't happen. I don't know if it's because I played my cards wrong or what, but it's just a matter of fact. Now, for them treating me different and specifically worse than others, that's complete BS. That's all in my head. Because if I really give it a thought, I was given the best section, the busiest section that makes the most money. I was always given the best schedule, exactly what I wanted. I never worked breakfast shifts or some BS shifts that nobody wanted to work, like Mother's Day or Easter. I was off on those days. I had night shifts always, like closing shifts, with the best and biggest section that made the most money, like I said. I did not subjectively or objectively ever gotten the worst treatment by my manager like I claimed in my head every time. Every time I had a job, I always thought that my manager was out to get me and that they hated me and they gave me a cold shoulder and they gave me the worst section and the worst schedule. I don't know, but I always felt mistreated. Every single time I thought I was mistreated. And even now, I compare myself to previous managers and how my VP, who's my direct boss, how he let other managers before me treat their job, and I am put to a higher standard, and I'm not allowed to come in at 5 o'clock. I have to be at work at 12 and work a double every single day, and I have to do this and this and this that other managers previously didn't do and weren't expected to do, which is what I found out from my servers. So it's like I'm still finding ways to compare myself to others and assume that I'm given the worst treatment, that I'm treated worse than others, which I don't know if I can say, quite honestly, because my boss, he'll give me this busy schedule, but then in the middle of the week, he's like, how about you take a day off tomorrow? Like, I'm on salary. So he doesn't have to give me those days off. Like I will get paid the same regardless of how much or how little I work, as long as I work 40 hours a week on average, you know. So I don't have a base to claim that I'm treated worse, but I will find a way. I will twist facts. I will do my investigation and I will find biases that will be used in my favor, in the favor of this perception that I have that I'm treated worse. I don't know. I don't know why I do this. And then I'll start noticing those things and I start spiraling, and I'll tell my husband about it and he'll be like, you're spiraling again. Like, are those facts or is this something you made up in your head again? And like nine times out of 10, it's something I made up in my head. But that is a big challenge for me, that I have to remind myself to snap out of it, that I'm not as important as I think I am sometimes, that people are out to get me specifically. They don't think about me as much as I think they do. They're just going through the motions. They're also doing their jobs. They're not out there in the back talking shit about me like I always thought. It's not that. And then I also will assume that people talk trash about me in the back, and I will see how they're going out and they're hanging out outside of work and I'm not invited, but I notice that and I feel upset and left out. But then if I think back to previous interactions, I was invited and I never came. And people just stop inviting me because I don't seek out opportunities to hang out with people from work outside of work. I prefer not to do that. But then when I notice that other people do it, I'm like, well, what is wrong with me? Why you guys don't want to hang out with me? Like, can I sit with you? It's always something I can track back to my own behaviors. But in the moment, I forget that. And I will spiral into this, and I will spiral out of control and start thinking about how I'm treated differently, how I'm not as important at work, how I'm replaceable, how I'll get fired, how people don't want to hang out with me, how people are making jokes by the cooler, so to speak, or in my case, by the espresso machine. And I'm not invited in those conversations. But truly, honestly, at every job that I had, I was one of the leading characters. I was one people looked up to. Always, 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 always. I was one of the people, if not the only person, that people looked up to, that people wanted to be like me in terms of executing my job duties, you know. But somehow I didn't see it. I only see it years later. When I think of the job that I had years ago, I'm like, oh, well, actually, it wasn't anything like I thought it was at a time. It was actually a lot better. It was actually a good job. I actually didn't have to worry about being fired or anything. I was actually a valued employee for customers, for my bosses, for my coworkers, every single time. But while I have this job, I don't see it. I don't believe it. I feel like an outcast, like the worst employee in the world. Can somebody explain to me what the hell is all this about? Can somebody explain to me why is it that I do this to myself? Why do I punish myself? Why do I convince myself that I'm the worst, that I'm not worthy, that I should get fired? I don't know. I don't know. But that's just what I do. So yeah, those are the biggest challenges in the workplace that I've had over the years. And usually I quit a job because I'm so convinced that I'm going to get fired that I quit in order to avoid getting fired. Is that crazy? Yes, that's crazy. That's a crazy thing to do. But that's just what I do. That's what I did multiple times. except for one time when we moved. But once I start feeling like I'm gonna get fired anytime soon, I just quit. And who knows, maybe in some instances I was actually correct. I don't know. Maybe I do avoid getting fired by quitting, and maybe those thoughts that I have about being fired are not completely baseless. I don't know. I don't know what to think, but it's challenging. Having childhood traumas and mental health issues is something that gets in the way in a workplace. Big time. I would say it's the main reason people get depressed because of their jobs is mental health issues, underlying mental health issues. Sometimes I think, am I gonna be able to ever have a job and be happy doing it? I don't know. I pretty much gave up on the idea that it's possible, and I accepted the fact that you have to work in order to pay the bills. Like, there is no way out of it unless you inherit a lot of money or you have a rich partner, and that's the only way you can avoid working, or you have passive income. I have neither of those, you know? So I gotta work, and I just accepted that fact, and I try not to think about it, and try not to be get I try not to get in this doom mindset that, oh my god, it's over, life sucks because I have to work and pay bills. It does suck because of that, yes. But at the same time, I know when I don't work, I miss that. It's fulfilling for me to work on certain degree, not like in a big sense of the word. Like, I'm not saying that I'm not full, I'm not a complete person if I don't have a job. No, I'm a complete person either way. But it makes me feel better when I have a purpose. And I think it could be said about a lot of people that, or even most people, that when you have a purpose, which is your job, it makes you feel more fulfilled. Paying bills makes you feel more fulfilled because this is what we were told our entire childhood, that you should be you should strive to be self-sustainable, you know. And if you have a job, you get paid regularly, you have your bills paid on time, you don't have massive debt, you are an accomplished adult. I don't think it takes much more than that. So, of course, after being told your entire childhood that this is what you want to be, an accomplished adult, actually becoming an accomplished adult feels like an achievement. It's something you want to keep, it's something you want to continue doing, being that accomplished adult. And in order to be that person, you have to continue working, you have to continue paying bills, you have to continue with the motions, you know, all that kind of stuff. Without it, until you are eligible for retirement, I don't know. Like, for me, when I was freelancing, even just saying I'm self-employed or something like that didn't give me, for some reason, didn't give me a feeling of being accomplished. It made me feel like I was just excusing a lack of a job by saying that, which can't be, you know, it's not the same for everyone. And a lot of people are self-employed and successful and make a lot more money than they otherwise would. But it wasn't the case for me. So for me personally, it felt like admitting that I failed, saying, oh, I'm self-employed, I'm freelancer. Yeah, okay, that's just admitting that I'm unemployed and I'm living off of my savings, because that was the fact, you know. So yeah, but bottom line, even though I have all those challenges in the workplace, every time I have a job, I'm still going to continue having a job. And because I know that it fulfills me, it makes me feel more complete, more accomplished. So I'm going to continue doing that. Just earning my money with hard, honest work. That's it. Tell me in the comments if you can relate to anything that I said, if anything resonates with you, if you can see the correlation between a certain childhood trauma and how it is challenging to keep a job or how it is challenging to go to work and things like that. What is it that makes you not want to get up in the morning, get ready, and go to work? What is it that makes people hate their jobs? How is it related to childhood traumas, if at all? I would love to hear your opinions. This is something that we all can relate to. 99% of people probably can relate to having certain challenges in the workplace, and it would be interesting to see your opinions. Thank you for coming and watching my video. I appreciate it more than you know. Most people that watch my videos are not subscribed. I don't know what you're waiting for. Please subscribe. I make videos every week. All of them are talking about childhood traumas and how they affected me in adult life. And sometimes I do like scientific videos, how science and how research explain certain challenges caused by certain childhood traumas. And I have a whole variety of those. So if you want to know more, if you want to relate, if you want to hear a story of somebody who possibly got it worse to make yourself feel better about yourself, be my guest. Please come join me. And with that, I'm going to finish my video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.